morning and welcome in to another Saints Game Day live chat. My name is Jeff Nowak, WWL Radio and Audacy Sports digital sports producer, here to guide you through yet another weird week in the Who Dat Nation. It's the 2021 season, and what does that mean? It means that every week we're going to see something strange, something we have not seen before, and this week that's the case again. Last week it was a home game in Jacksonville. This week it is a road game in Carolina without about 8 starters I think at this point, with Marshawn Lattimore and CJ Gardner-Johnson recently ruled inactive. They were game time decisions, and eight offensive coaches not in action today due to COVID protocols. They actually did get one back, but they lost 2 more, so we're up to 8. And all that kind of combines into a really interesting matchup to see if the Saints can overcome yet again something they have done repeatedly. So there's no reason to think they can't. But let's get into it. First, I want to say make sure to check out WWL Radio, AM 870, FM 105.3. When I let you go here, thanks for everyone who's watching. Make sure to tune in there for the final hour of the pregame show with Christian Garrett, Mike Detillier, Bobby Hebert on the call this morning. And then we're going to hand it off to Deuce McAllister and Mike Hoss, the voice of the Saints, for the broadcast. Make sure you check that out. But first, make sure you go throw a question in the chat, and I'll try to get to them in the back half of the show. Make sure you follow WWL Radio on Twitter at WWL AM FM, over on YouTube at WWL Sports, and over on Facebook at WWL Radio. So let's get into this matchup here, because the Saints have dominated matchups with the Panthers in recent years. They did it last year, and it doesn't seem to matter who's out there for the Saints. They didn't have a single running back that you expected to see last year, and they still got the job done in Week 17. They didn't have Michael Thomas or Emmanuel Sanders in the Week 7 matchup last year, and they still got it done. It's just been the MO of the Saints. They find a way. They did it last week, and I want to say that the 38-3 win in Jacksonville, while encouraging, was a sign of things to come. I really think that result, as lopsided as it was, had almost as much to do with the Packers as it did with the Saints. They did not play well, and the Saints did. They showed up with a plan, and they executed it. It's not going to be that easy every week. Don't get fooled into thinking a team is as good as it looks on its best day or as bad as it looks on its worst. And we're going to see a lot of variation in the Saints' performances compared to that one. You're not going to see Jameis Winston throw 20 passes, and a quarter of those go for touchdowns. That is absurd and does not happen very often. I think you're going to see a little less efficiency today. I think the Panthers are going to put up a bit more of a fight than the Packers did. And again, this is a team facing a lot of challenges. Let me flash up the injury report here, which is now a little dated because of what I just said earlier with Marshawn Lattimore and CJ Gardner-Johnson now inactive. But here, I'll take down my name. There you go. So, yeah, you can see here, there's a lot of guys on here that have actually already been sent to IR. You have Quan Alexander and Marcus Davenport. Both were listed out on Friday. Both have been sent to IR. They will be inactive for 3 weeks. Guys are going to have to step up in the interim. I think the Saints have the players who can do it, but you're going to have to rely on guys like Zach Bond. You're going to have to rely on guys like Peyton Turner, the first-round rookie, who, get this, should play today. He's been kind of a mystery man. He missed a lot of camp. He wasn't there for Week 1, but he didn't appear on the injury report all week, and all indications are he will make his NFL debut today, and I'm excited to see him out there. I don't know how effective he'll be, but, they took him in the first round for a reason. The Saints really like this guy. He's got long arms. He's strong. He's fast. He's going to get upfield, and he could wreck the game if he puts down the performance that the Saints drafted him knowing he could do. The other 2 guys, like I said, CJ Gardner-Johnson and Marshawn Lattimore, both were listed as questionable. Both, missed a couple practices throughout the week, and both will not play today. So that means you are losing your starting outside corner in Marshawn Lattimore, your star cornerback. You are losing your starting nickel corner in CJ Gardner-Johnson. The good news, PJ Williams does appear like he'll be playing, and Bradley Roby, the cornerback the Saints acquired in a trade from the Texans before Week 1, is going to be out there, along with Desmond Trufant, who got some snaps last week. And Paulson Adebo, again, is going to get another opportunity to prove himself today. So guys, just like last week, guys are going to have to step up, and we'll see how it goes. I think PJ Williams is a luxury guy to have, knowing that he can really fill that nickel corner position. But you are going to lose a lot. You're going to lose a lot of the teeth of this defense without C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Without Quan Alexander, I expect Zach Bond to have a huge role today. A guy like Andrew Dowell might even step in there. Pete Werner is out, so you're not going to see that rookie make a contribution today. So, that linebacker group, it is deep, 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 and it's just going to be a question of how influential they can be in this matchup. But let's move over. Let's see if we got any comments. First, Luke Smucker. Good to see you, bud. Got Dwight Crochet with the Go Saints. Who dat from SoCal? Out in SoCal. Got some interesting teams out there this year. The Rams with Matthew Stafford. I'm fascinated. Well, let's see. Oh, here's a good one. D. Saint Star Johnson. They're saying McCaffrey is going to single-handle us. I like that. What's your take? And I'm saying not the case. We have young rookies that can get it done and players that can. Solutions, stay focused, play your best. Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be the question when you face the Panthers is how do you stop, or, better yet, how do you slow down Christian McCaffrey? With certain players in the NFL, the joke is you can only hope to contain him. In this case, that's true. You can only hope to contain him. Christian McCaffrey's going to get his yards. The Panthers are going to make sure he gets his touches. And it's just a matter of making sure he doesn't burn you so much that you can't recover from it, right? You want those to be, first-degree burns, not third-degree burns. And how do you do that? Deuce McAllister, WWL Radio's color analyst on game day, and a former Saints star running back himself, gave some really good insight this week in how he would approach Christian McCaffrey. And obviously, he's a running back. He has an idea. And he termed it as the Marshall Faulk approach, right? You're not relying on one single guy to chase Christian McCaffrey around to try to shut him down. You're relying on a committee of guys, right? You're relying on a Demario Davis, a Malcolm Jenkins, a strong safety, whoever the nickel corner is, probably PJ Williams. You're relying on, maybe another guy stepping in there and just taking on that primary coverage responsibility, shifting throughout the game. He's not going to see one look. He's going to see a lot of looks. You're going to try to confuse him. You're going to try to take him out of his comfort zone. The other thing that he expects to see a lot of, and I agree, hit him, chip him. Make sure he feels you. Do not allow him to release out of the backfield without getting just shucked to the side. He's not a huge guy. You can impact him with contact, and you can do that within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So when he's releasing out of the backfield, it's going to be a responsibility of whoever is on that side to get a shoulder in him, get up into his shoulder pads, make sure he knows you're there, make him uncomfortable, because you can't just allow him to get downfield and chase him around. It's just not going to work. The Saints have done a good job in past matchups against Christian McCaffrey. They did a good job against Aaron Jones last week. Not quite as dynamic, but very similar back in the sense that he catches a lot of passes and he makes a lot of people miss in the open field. They also understand how to use a running back like that themselves in Alvin Kamara. So the Saints are very familiar with the type of running back Christian McCaffrey is. Now, is that enough to actually slow him down? We'll see. But again, the Saints have done this in the past, and I don't think that Christian McCaffrey is going to be the reason the Saints lose today if they lose. I think it's going to be big plays. It's going to be containing Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. These guys are very fast. As you saw in the Week 7 matchup last year, DJ Moore single-handedly, scored a touchdown. I think it was 75 yards, and he just took the top off the defense. They didn't get over the top. Marcus Williams bit down, and he burned them. And that's what I'm more concerned with because of the lack of faces in the secondary, because you're going to be asking a very good safety group to do a bit more than they had to do last week, to cover, to clamp down, to bracket people more than they might have previously. You're asking a Bradley Roby with 1 week of practice to essentially be your top corner on the outside. You're asking Paulson Adebo in his second career start to do it again, against a Joe Brady offense that, is going to put you in disadvantaged positions. That's the whole point of the Joe Brady offense, is to get playmakers in space and to force defenders to chase them. And the Saints don't have the personnel to be chasing people all day. They're going to have to get pressure in Sam Darnold's face, make him see some ghosts if they can, and hope that the young quarterback makes mistakes. I don't think that Sam Darnold has enough to really make you hurt on the defensive side of the ball. So it's a matter of containing the playmakers and making sure that he has to get the ball out hot, making sure the pass rush gets home, making sure you're not getting eaten alive in the interior. The interior held up well last week. A good sign. That was a big point. That was my biggest point of concern going in. So we'll see if they can do that again. Robert Clark, how do you think Jameis Winston will react to defense blitzing? Because Carolina loves the blitz. I don't actually think you're going to see a huge number of blitzes today. Because I think that Carolina, just like the Saints, is very well aware of the fact that they can't allow Alvin Kamara to dictate how this game goes, right? Alvin Kamara is probably the only established offensive playmaker the Saints have. I mean, they have a lot of talent on offense, but there's one guy when you look at the Saints that you have to make sure doesn't beat you because you know who he is. You know he's the star. So how do you do that? You load the box. You don't necessarily send pressure, right? Because when you send pressure, it allows Kamara to chip, release, get the ball in the open field, and then have a chance against playmakers. It'll depend on game flow a little bit. I could see the Panthers blitzing a lot more if they're behind, if they're ahead. If this is a tight game, I think you're going to see a lot of base. You're going to see a lot of zone, and or at least two-man where there's a zone on the inside and guys are covering on the outside. They have two good cover corners, and I think that's what you're going to see. But I don't think after last week they want to put Jameis Winston in a position where he has to get the ball out hot because he proved against the Packers that he's that decision making has improved, right? Watching the LSU game last night, which is a good explanation for why I'm so tired this morning, they made a really good observation about Joe Burrow, which was essentially that in the 2019 season, Joe Burrow wasn't getting blitzed. And it wasn't because defenses didn't want to pressure him. It was because he was so good at beating the blitz that it didn't make sense to send it. He was so good at identifying it. He was so good at getting the ball out hot to the player in the right position. And it made it so blitzing actually hurt you even if you got there because he beat it so easily. And that's what Jameis Winston showed he could do last week. He made the right decisions. He pulled the ball down and got out into space. He made people miss in the pocket. I think that this game is going to come down to the correct decisions downfield, not necessarily, how does he handle the pressure, because he has the ultimate escape valve in Alvin Kamara and even Tony Jones, who has proved a capable receiver. So I think the Saints probably would be happy if the Panthers got blitz happy and they were able to just pick them apart in the middle of the field on hot passes, reacting to that. But let's move on. What do you think coverage plan is in the secondary? More two deep man under. PJ is not great in deep coverage. Yeah, so PJ, I don't think he's going to be playing on the outside. I think Paulson Adebo showed more than enough that you're going to give him that run as the second cornerback. It's going to be tough. I think if you go back and look at the Lions matchup last year, I think that's probably a good sample for how the Saints would attack Carolina today on the defensive side of the ball. They went into that game without their two starting cornerbacks. PJ Williams actually did play outside in that game. So, they're actually a little better off personnel-wise in terms of the numbers game that they have to play. But, I don't think you're going to see guys, locked up on an island the way that you would with Marshawn Lattimore in there. The ability to just take this top wide receiver out of the game and just lock him down with a guy is it's a luxury. And I'm not sure they have that. Bradley Roby is a good player. But keep in mind, he hasn't played in an NFL game since week 11 last year. So even by those standards, he's going to be, there's some question of rust there. Whether he even knows the schemes well enough to be effective as he will be down the road, who knows? But until you see him out there, it's tough to really project what you might get from him. So I think you're going to have to send a little more help his way. You're not going to be able to sit back in two deep zones the way that you would like to. You're probably going to have to send Malcolm Jenkins, send Marcus Williams over the top in a lot of instances, and that's going to make things a little more difficult. And I think you're going to see more zone coverage this week than you might in most weeks. I think you're going to see a little more cover three, a little more, quarters, just to make sure you're protecting those guys, because the Panthers are going to take deep shots. They have the personnel. Robbie Anderson is a blur, and if you lose track of him for 1 second, Sam Darnold has more than enough arm strength to get the ball downfield. Where he struggles is the areas that Jameis struggled early in his career. Decision making, making sure you're checking the right reads, checking the right protections, before the snap so that you can actually get the ball downfield post snap. But yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting point to watch. I was mildly optimistic that Marshawn Lattimore might give it a go. He was limited in practice. He had a brace on his hand. He chipped a bone in his thumb, and they did surgery. The fact that he was a game-time decision at all is actually a reasonably positive development. It would be worse if he was ruled out on Friday and they just projected that, as long as he has this cast on his hand, he's not going to be able to play. The fact that they even consider giving it a go means that the Saints, feel pretty confident in his ability to play with it, and it's more about the health of his hand at this point. Is it a pain tolerance issue? Can he protect it? And will he make it worse if he plays with it? I think we got the answers to a couple of those, which are no, he probably won't make it worse if he plays with it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put him out there anyway. They wouldn't have made him a game-time decision anyway. So, I think that's a positive thing, but this week it's not going to help you. The surprise to me was C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So he was limited earlier in the week with a knee injury. He didn't practice on Thursday or Friday. I still thought he was going to try to give it a go, and maybe did, but that's a big loss to me. Your nickel corner, they're not even technically a starter. They're vitally important in today's NFL. You need that extra corner to cover, especially tight ends out of the backfield, or tight ends, coming off the line, and running backs out of the backfield. And without that, they could get exposed a little bit in the middle of the field. So P.J. Williams is going to be a guy that has to step up. Let's see. Red T, we're pretty injured, so I don't know about this game. They are. The Saints are very injured. I put out a tweet the other day. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak, and the list of players that will return week 4, week 5, week 7, week 8 is extensive, and it's a lot of starters. It's remarkable. You already have Nick Vannett, tight end. You have Will Lutz. You have Will Clapp, who would have been the backup center. Instead, you have Cesar Ruiz and Calvin Throckmorton over at guard. This week you lose Quan Alexander. You lose Chase Hansen, who's another depth linebacker. You lose, Marcus Davenport, who looked like a stud in week 1. Just can't seem to stay healthy. Hopefully it's not anything serious, and they're just trying to get some rest and make sure he's right for the rest of the season. But it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. My X factor today, Marquez Callaway, and I think it's easy to look at Marquez Callaway and say, oh man, okay, maybe he was just a flash in the pan in the preseason. Maybe that's all he was. Maybe that's what we have in Marquez Callaway. I don't see that. I don't believe that what I saw in training camp was a mirage. I think that what I saw in week 1 was closer to a mirage, in the sense that the Saints are not going to be able to win games by throwing to the wide receivers 6 times. That's what happened against the Green Bay Packers. They targeted wide receivers 6 times. Juwan Johnson got the goal line targets. Alvin Kamara got a little push pass to the goal line. And there just wasn't a lot of food to go around for all of those mouths. Callaway did get targeted in the end zone early in the game. I think that's a positive thing, because he's really your downfield threat in this offense. Deontay Harris is the shot play threat, right? But that's a little different. You're talking about design shot plays where you're trying to get a look and beat a guy over the top and just lay it out there. That's not necessarily what you're looking for in Callaway. He's the contested catch guy. He's going to be running those deep digs, those 12 to 18, 20-yard routes downfield, where you're just picking up chunk, and getting to the end zone. He was targeted in those situations in week 1 at least once, and he had another one later in the game that probably could have been pushed downfield to him, similar to what you saw against the Jaguars in the preseason. But as I wrote in my preview column today, when you're blowing out a team, the smart decision is usually the correct decision, and there's no need to take a risk downfield when you're winning by 24 points in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. But I do think that he's going to assert himself today, and there's good reason to think that. If you go back to last season, the Panthers games were where he made his money. He had 8 catches on 10 targets in week 7, a week that they desperately needed a pass catcher to step up and move the chains in that kind of X role, and he did it. He did it incredibly well. That was 2 weeks after the Chargers win, where he kind of made it wasn't his debut, but it was kind of his coming out party, if you will. Another game that they really needed that receiver depth. Emmanuel Sanders was there for that one. I want to say he caught 12 passes, but Callaway really showed off later in the season, week 17. He had probably his top highlight of the year when he went up over Dante Jackson on a fade and pulled it down. And, some matchups just work for certain players, and I think this is one that works for Marquez Callaway. And, I don't think that he was happy with the one catch result in week 1. He has high expectations for himself, too. And I think you're going to see him show why everyone was excited about him this year. I think he's going to get into the end zone this week. That's my prediction. First career touchdown. He did not have one last year. He had one negated by a offensive pass interference penalty on Traquan Smith as he kind of ran a pick play. Has not had a touchdown in the NFL, so that would be a career first for Marquez Callaway. I'm calling my shot. It's going to happen. But we'll see. Anyone with score predictions, please throw them in. I'm going to give you mine really quick, which it started at 23-20 Saints. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. I thought, maybe you'd have CJ and you'd be able to work around. Without both those guys, I'm going to have to bump that up. I think it's going to be closer to 30. I think it's going to be a much closer game than it was last week. But the Saints defense gets it done in the end. I'm going to go 28-23. That's going to be my new guess. I think Saints still get it done. I really do think they get it. They figure it out. I've always said Sean Payton in these matchups, it just seems like the crazier the obstacle, the better he gets. He lives for these Mad Hatter kind of pull a rabbit out of a hat wins. We've seen it constantly over the last 2 seasons, right? Drew Brees missed 9 games. 9 games from 2019 to 2020. The Saints went 8-1. What team does that? What team loses their starting quarterback and has an 80% winning percentage? They don't. Sean Payton teams do. And that's where you see that. That's why I see the coaching absences as actually potentially a more significant thing than the player absences, because the Saints trust their depth because they have the schemes, they have the plans, they have the preparation to overcome that. But those coaches play a pivotal role, even if you don't see them throughout the game. As you're watching on the broadcast, those coaches are important, and it'll be interesting to see what exactly gets lost. They've lost the running backs coach Joel Thomas isn't there, tight ends coach Dan Rushar isn't there, offensive line coach Brandon Nugent is there, thankfully, because that's a group that might need some coaching. You got 2 people playing out of position, or at least one playing out of position in Cesar Ruiz and Calvin Throckmorton backing him up. That's a situation you want your coach to be available to help with. But with that, you lost Ryan Nielsen, who's your defensive line coach. So it's going to be interesting. If you see some weird breakdowns, Phil Galliano also not there, special teams. If you see breakdowns at positions that just seem unusual, guys are out of position, some of the plays just don't seem right. I don't think the Saints are going to use it as an excuse for why any kind of weird hiccups kind of crept in, but it very well could be the reason, and it's just something to keep in mind. One thing, let's get one more from Robert Clark. Tight end Adam Troutman will have a better game this week. Juwan Johnson is very confident. The Saints tight end group, I've been saying this all along, which is I think that people are confusing how the Saints are operating their tight ends, right? They're doing 2 very different things. It's not a question of whether Juwan Johnson has a big game or Adam Troutman has a big game at the tight end position, because they're completely different players. Completely different players. They have the same position, but it's like saying Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston are both quarterbacks. They are technically by the position, but they do very different things. And you won't call the same plays for them because of their skill set differences, right? So when you look at what Adam Troutman does, it's important to keep in mind he's the primary blocking tight end, especially without Nick Vannett. So his role is going to be a bit limited in the sense of going downfield and being a threat up the seam, because he's needed in those blocking sets, in those heavy formations. And so, a good game for him is 6 catches, 50 yards, right? He could be a red zone threat, just like Juwan Johnson was last week, but he's just not going to be the volume tight end that a lot of people seem to think he was going to be. Juwan Johnson, on the other hand, he could disappear. I think he's going to have a much lower floor than an Adam Troutman. But, he's always got the ability to break a 60-yard pass for a touchdown. So, I don't think that we need to look at it as, okay, who's going to play well this week? Juwan Johnson or Adam Troutman. It's how do the Saints choose to use their tight ends to attack the defense? And I think this week you will see more Adam Troutman because the Saints are going to want to control the ball. They did it well last week, and it's going to be even more of a priority this week with all the absences. So that's what I would go with there. Okay, Robert, this is our prediction so far, 28-19. Yeah, I think that's where I would put it. I don't think the Saints are going to get embarrassed today on defense. I really don't. I don't think this is a group that balks at a challenge. But they're going to have a little more trouble than they did last week, I think. And so I think that's a fair prediction. I don't think the offense is going to miss a step. The Panthers are going to have to keep up, and I'm just not sure they can do it. But that's where I am. Again, my name is Jeff Nowak, WWL, digital sports producer. Make sure you check out Audacy.com/WWL. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. I'm going to pop that channel up below. Make sure you hop on there, ring the bell so you can get notifications when we post new videos, live chats, everything like that. Make sure you tune into the broadcast noon on Fox, over on WWL Radio, AM 870, FM 105.3. You can stream it live on desktop, not mobile. I know that's annoying, but it's just the way it is. And follow me over on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. DMs are open. Let me know you're there. Let me know if you want to see anything else from these live chats, any topics you want to go over. I'm going to try to get more into film study this week. Hopefully we get the All-22 back on Game Pass so I can do a little more of that. Been driving me nuts. Don't feel like I know what's going on to be able to see the All-22. So hopefully that changes. Fingers crossed. But until then, we got about an hour until kickoff. Make sure to tune in to the pregame show with Christian Garrick and Bobby Hebert over on WWL Radio. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for dropping in. Anyone who dropped in a question. And let's see what happens. All right. Peace.